Several of your employees didn't show up to work today. What do you do? We're going to discuss that today. I'm Frank, and I'm all about helping business owners and entrepreneurs start and grow their lawn care business. Make sure to subscribe, like, and hit the bell button so you're notified of my future videos. What's going on, lawn care pros? So today we're in our new studio. As you know, if you've been watching my videos, I've been doing a lot of videos in the car. So we've been in transition between one location to another. Finally, we are at this location, and this is our first video with this studio. So I hope you like it. And if you want, comment below, give us some recommendations as far as, decoration and so forth. We'd love to hear from you. Again, this is our first one, so you will probably see some transitions, and obviously we're going to get better and better. So let's roll. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about getting the right employee and making sure that they show up on a consistent basis. So it's Monday, and I got a call this morning from one of my clients, and he's having issues with employees not showing up, whether it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, a Friday, whatever it is, whatever day it is, he's having issues with that. But today it kind of blew my mind because it's a Monday and 12 employees, that's how many employees he has, 5 out of the 12 employees didn't show up today. Now, most of them did have legitimate reasons, but it just kind of blows my mind that, 5 out of 12 employees just didn't show up today. So, we're kind of talking back and forth, and he's asking me questions, and really he's making a lot of comments about, how difficult this environment is as far as, hiring employees and retaining employees and really getting people to show up to work. And, he goes on and on about, when him and I were growing up in our generation, how we were more committed to working and we were harder workers, we showed up, we had commitment, we had integrity and those things, and he's having a difficult time finding those qualities in employees in this day and age. And, he was also, talking about other things as far as, there's more competition as far as what other people are paying. Maybe Amazon's paying like $15 or $20, and it was all these elements, right? The elements of generation, the elements of, pay, and maybe, they're lazier nowadays than we were back then. So these were all the negative things that I was hearing. And really what I want to focus in on is, fixing the problem, right? And so I asked him, how would you fix some of these things? I just want to kind of get where his mindset is, right? And his mindset was, well, I need to pay more. Well, I need to incentivize this or that. Maybe I need to give a attendance bonus, right? And one of the things he did try was, if you showed up on Monday, then you would get your paycheck on a Thursday, Thursday after work, instead of the regularly scheduled payday, which is Friday for him, right? So normally you would get paid on Friday, but if you showed up on Monday, you would get paid on Thursday. So obviously that didn't work, because here it is on a Monday and he's got 5 out of 12 employees that are out. He hasn't had that kind of a poor attendance in a long time. So here it is on a Monday, even though he's incentivizing people getting paid one day earlier, they're still not showing up. So what's going on with this whole situation, right? That's what we want to kind of dig in and find out. So I continued to ask him more questions, and I kept digging in and trying to figure out what are some of the things that you would do, right? And he's already implemented one thing, he's talking about paying more, he's talking about this and that. So really those are just band-aids to a problem. And they're all short-term solutions, right? So we want to get in there and dig in and find the real solutions, the long-term solutions. So we're not constantly trying to, up the pay. We're not constantly trying to find gimmicks like, I'm going to give you more money or a bonus. So it's really not about just giving bonuses. And there is a place for those things, right? There is a place for performance bonus. There is a place for attendance bonus. But that should not be your driving force in order to get employees to do what they're supposed to do, their job, right? So we're going to dig in and try to figure out what are the driving forces in order to get your employees to do their job, show up on time, be excellent at what they do. So after our conversation went a little bit further and he was able to, give me some ideas of how he would handle the situation, I kind of stopped him right there and I wanted to really dig in and give him some long-term solutions, because everything that he was putting out was short-term solutions to a problem that we need to fix on a long-term basis. So here's how I handle things when it comes to employees, and here's what I recommend as far as my client went. First of all, you want to have an excellent hiring process. I can tell you, going through his hiring process, that it wasn't very optimal. And one of the things that I gathered was he was in such a rush to hire someone because he was always behind, that he left a lot of things on the table. He wasn't asking all the right questions. He wasn't having the employee come back for a second interview. Basically, if they had a pulse, he was hiring them. And really, you're gonna get that kind of quality person if you don't invest in the time and interview them the right way. And again, I go back, he's really concentrating on the pool of employees that are coming through, the potential employees, and he's not getting enough people coming through, so he's, pulling that trigger and hiring people more quickly than he should. And really what we want to do is keep that bucket full. And I've talked about this in other videos, making sure that you're constantly looking for employees, right? Because once you get that core number of employees in place, then you can kind of back off. But in his case, he really needs to be constantly looking for employees. That way, if he has a lot of candidates that he can choose from, he can be more picky. And that's something that he hasn't been doing. He would hire a few employees, then he would stop the hiring process. What I want you to do is, once you hire a couple employees, I want you to keep that hiring process in place. You can always take applications, you can always go through the hiring process. Going through that hiring process is really a good exercise for you as well, right? So always be interviewing people, always take in applications, and that way, if one of your employees is not performing well, you can replace that employee. You want to make sure you have plenty of applicants that you can choose from, right? So that's number one. We want to make sure that we have a good hiring process. We want to make sure that we have a pool of employees, a big pool of employees, potential employees, that we can choose from, right? Obviously, if you have a big pool of potential employees that you can choose from, you can be a little bit more pickier, right? And I encourage you, whenever you're doing that hiring process, you have a list of questions that you're asking, and you can kind of gauge, from their history, make sure you look at their history. Did they stay with companies for a long time? Did they work at 6 companies in the last 6 months, right? If that's the case, that's probably not a good fit for you, because they're gonna do the same thing to you, right? So you wanna make sure that you're picking the right employees from the get-go. And again, if you have a big pool to choose from, then that's much easier. And the way to do that is constantly be looking. Don't stop running the ads. Don't wait for you to be shorthanded and then be reactive to the situation. I want you to be proactive to the situation and have potential employees in line ready to jump in, right? And that's what we're looking for. So when you're first starting out, you might not be comfortable, doing the interview process yourself. So what I want you to do is first, research and make sure you can ask the questions that you're asking. There are certain questions you can and cannot ask. So once you figure that out, I want you to make a list of questions, and it doesn't have to be, 100 questions. I'm talking about 5 to 10 questions, key questions that you can ask your potential employees. And if you're not comfortable at first, which you probably won't be, what I want you to do is kind of role play, and it's much easier to role play if you have a list of questions, right? Instead of sitting down with someone and just trying to get that right out of your head. So you have a list of questions. What I want you to do is kind of practice with a coworker or a friend or a spouse or whatever that may be, right? And that way you're going to get more comfortable with that process. And another thing that I like to do when it comes to potential employees is always make sure that you have a second interview. Like if you like someone, right? You've narrowed it down, and I like Joe. Man, Joe's got some experience. And as soon as I get done with that interview, if I really like Joe, right, I set a second interview. And I set the second interview for maybe 1 day out or 2 days out, whatever your schedule may be. And the reason I do that is because I want to find out, is he good that next day? Is he good 3 days from now? Is he good, 5 days from now? Whatever that might be, right? So he might have gave you a great performance that day. I want to see if he's consistent a day out, 2 days out, or 3 days out. I also want to find out, is he going to show up on time, right? So let's say, Joe shows up on time on your first interview and he's 50 minutes late on the second interview. That's kind of a tattletale sign. Well, maybe something really did happen, right? He has a great excuse. Set a third interview. I want you to really dig in and find that right person, right? Because if you are just hiring because they have a pulse or they told you that they're great at what they do, that's not a really good way to hire people. If you know that they've, worked 6 jobs in the last 6 months, there's probably a good chance that they're not going to stay with you long term either. So we made the decision to hire Joe. So Joe showed up on his first interview, did a great job. We called him for a second interview. He was on time. He did a great job. So here we are, we've hired Joe. What do we do now? Now, this is also something that is very, very important in order to make sure that you have a good team. And that is to make sure that you train your employees before you just put them out on the lawn. And that's something, as I talked to my client, that's another thing that he was struggling with. And as he was hiring these employees, he was just kind of putting them out with one of the crew members and seeing how well they performed, And really, that's something that I don't recommend. I recommend that you have procedures in place, you have a crew chief or someone designated to training. That could be a crew chief or it could be yourself, right? If you're a small operation, you might do all the training yourself. So you have those procedures in place as far as what we're gonna do when we get out to the lawn, how we're gonna mow it and what we're gonna do. We're gonna go this way, we're gonna go that way. If it's a 2-man crew, he's gonna go to the back, I'm gonna stay in the front, vice versa. I'm gonna get the blower, he's gonna get the mower. Whatever it is, you have those procedures in place, and that way this person that you hired knows what to do and he feels comfortable and good about it. You don't wanna just send somebody out and have them do whatever they used to do at another lawn care company, right? Because what if there's no standards at the other lawn care company? They're gonna do what they did and what they know, and that might not be good enough for you. So make sure that you have those things in place. Or you might send them out with one of your employees that never got trained himself, right? So you have somebody that never got trained going along with somebody that's just starting out. That's, to me, a recipe for disaster. You're gonna get poor lawns and Joe is gonna get uncomfortable, right? You hired this great guy, his name is Joe, he's out there, he's like, I'm out here, what do I do? I'm not sure what to do or how, my boss wants things done. So again, you got to spend or invest the time to train your employees. And this way you have consistency across the board. You don't want one crew doing one thing and another crew doing something totally different, because you're gonna have inconsistencies and that's just, again, a recipe for disaster. You're gonna lose customers and that's, not a good thing. That's not what we want. We want to grow our business and we want to grow it in a way that we are doing a good job on a consistent basis. A good example would be if we hired Joe and we own a pizza place and we tell Joe, hey, we just hired you, now go back there and make me a pizza. And we don't tell him what the recipe is. We don't tell him what the oven temperature should be. We don't tell him anything else. We just say, hey, Joe, go make a pizza because we're busy. Because we did a poor job in our planning, now we expect you to do something that you're not comfortable with, you have no experience in. Well, Joe's gonna get frustrated, right? Joe's not gonna do a good job and Joe is gonna call in. So Joe is gonna be the next guy that goes and finds another job, right? Because again, you didn't put him in a situation where he can succeed. You have to put your employees in a good situation where they can succeed. That way they feel good about what they do. That way they're gonna show up to work. They enjoy their work, right? So after I spoke to my client about those two things, then I went into what I probably think is the most important thing, and that's culture. So we wanna be consistent in our training. We wanna be consistent in how we handle situations, sick days, how we handle people calling in. any situation like that, we want to handle those consistently across the board, right? We don't want to treat one employee differently than another employee, because then that becomes a problem. We want to make sure all our employees are in uniform. We want to make sure that we have a good mission statement. We want to make sure that we're all working hand in hand to achieve a goal, right? So that's what I'm talking about as far as culture goes. So once you implement these practices, you're going to see employees holding other employees accountable. And that's where you want to get to, right? You're not going to have 5 out of 12 employees calling in, because you're going to nip that at the bud, right? This is not going to happen for you. So after I finished my call with my client, he felt a little bit better, but he also knew that he had a lot of work to do, right? So you have to put in the work. That's the point that I'm trying to make in this video. You can't just expect to put Band-Aids on problems and think that it's going to go away. You're going to deal with the same issues over and over again if you don't implement some of these things that I talked about today and really dig in and find the right employee, train them, and then really set a culture as far as what we're all about and make them feel good and buy into that culture, right? So they got to feel good about it. They got to feel good about the mission. They got to feel good about coming to work. They got to feel good about the pay. And ultimately, then you can start rewarding people with incentives and those kind of things. Again, I'm okay with incentivizing, for being on time, for being, great attendance bonus or performance bonus. I'm good with all that, but that's not what I want to lead with, right? A good example is, I don't know if you watch football or baseball or what have you, it's just my observation that when I see, a quarterback, and I'm not going to name any names, but let's just say Tony Romo. So Tony Romo, go Cowboys. So Tony Romo, he was this great quarterback, the potential and so forth. And next thing you know, they paid him all this money, right? They paid him all this money. I can tell you, as a Cowboys fan, he didn't play any better, right? I can tell you other examples, and and maybe you can tell me some examples of other, great athletes where, they're doing so fantastic and they're, all of a sudden they give them more money, right? They didn't do any better, right? So again, I don't want to lead with the money, right? I don't want to lead with the incentives. I want to lead with me doing the work, right? And that's what I told my client. You have to do the work. You have to get in there and set in place, these procedures. You've got to interview people. You can't just, somebody walks in and they got a pulse and you go, okay, well, mowing is not a science. Mowing is easy. Anybody could do it. Any person can get in there and mowing. Well, I can tell you that that's not true. Anybody can do it, but they can't do it to your level of expectation, right? Because we're getting paid as a service provider. We have to deliver excellence. And in order for us to deliver excellence, we have to be excellent ourselves. We can't just get in there and say, I'll just put anybody in there, it's so easy, and then complain about it. We can't go, oh, why did he do such a bad job? Well, you didn't train him. You didn't do the work. If you don't do the work, you can't expect great results. Again, I want to emphasize how important it is for you to do the work. In closing, today we talked about a good hiring process, a good training process, and culture. If you can have these 3 things in place, I am confident your business is going to be successful for a long time to come. I know hiring and maintaining good quality employees can be challenging for many of us, so make sure that you comment below and share some of your stories, some of your experiences when it comes to hiring and maintaining great employees. If this video was helpful for you, make sure to subscribe, like, and hit the bell button so you're notified of my future videos. See you next time, Lawn Care Pros.